It is 2025, and actually, the exact date is June 2nd, 2025. So it looks like the year is just flying by. We're almost halfway through it and all along those lines, but it is definitely flying on through and all in that space. But that doesn't mean that there isn't lots of news going on in the world. So a Colorado attack is the latest that is being reported. Holocaust survivor was among 8 injured after a man firebombed that area. So suspect used a flamethrower and yelled "Free Palestine" in the Colorado attack, according to what the FBI is reporting. So the FBI raided the home of the in eastern Colorado Springs with ties to the suspect in the Boulder terror attack. So who knows? I think that Rick Rosner has some ties to Boulder, so maybe he'll have some thoughts around this story if he makes it in and all along those lines. Ukraine's massive drone attack deep inside Russia lays bare Putin's vulnerability. So Operation Spiderweb, a visual guide on Ukraine's destruction of Russian aircrafts. So Ukraine destroyed Russian bomber with shocking barrage of drones ahead of the peace talks. So definitely that is something that people are talking about as well. And the populist Karol Nawrocki won the presidential election in Poland. So that is setting the stage for more clashes with Prime Minister Tusk. So looks like there's going to be some conflicts in that part of the world as well. So it looks like there's just conflicts left and right throughout the world stage. So that's something that people are talking about in that way. Trump-backed nationalist was the one that won the election there in Poland. So he is backed by President Trump. So that is something that maybe his power is carrying over to some of the other parts of the world. UK faces its most serious military threat since the Cold War, according to what Starmer is saying. Turning point, Britain doubles down on defense with nuclear submarines. So UK to extend a submarine fleet in a shift to readiness. So that's something that we're seeing in the news as well. And like I said, the Ukraine-Russia peace talks end after barely an hour, according to the Turkish officials, and that was reported less than about a half an hour ago. So Ukraine and Russia meet for a second round of talks as attacks escalate. So definitely we'll see how these talks go. But they have already stopped after only having talked for a little bit. And more than 20 were killed near an aid distribution site in Gaza, according to health officials. Israel strikes in North Gaza, kills 14, mostly women and children, according to what the health officials are reporting. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. And in India, a man was arrested with dozens of venomous vipers at the Mumbai airport. So I guess maybe he was trying to take them somewhere or something along those lines. But smuggler was caught with dozens of venomous vipers concealed in checked out baggage um, on the plane, customs officials say. So Mumbai airport seizure, passenger caught with venomous snakes from Thailand. So that's something that people will be talking about as well. And who knows what else people are smuggling in various countries as that way and everything. So who knows? One watched helplessly as water washed my family away in Nigeria floods is what was being reported in the BBC. And Nigeria was hit by a deadly flooding described as the worst in 60 years. At least 200 killed, flood merged Nigerian trading hub. So it looks like more than 200 are dead and 500 are missing in that sad news. And a lion kills a businessman at a luxury safari lodge in Namibia after he stepped out of the tent. Uh, and all along those lines. So it looks like I might have been stepped out of the tent to use the restroom or whatever like that. But the Namibian businessman was killed by a lioness while on safari with his wife and friends. So wealthy philanthropist who spent fortune supporting Namibian desert lions is killed by one after leaving his tent and all along those lines. So we might be hearing more about this story as it continues to develop. China warns U.S. not to play with fire on Taiwan as hedges brands Beijing imminent, so like an imminent threat. And Europe bristles at U.S. proposals at Asian gathering. India, Pakistan hostility as well. So there's some hostility going on in the Asian front as well. So definitely that's something folks will be paying attention to. And Greta Thunberg set sails with Gaza flotilla that aims to break Israeli naval blockade. So climate activists Greta Thunberg joins aid ship sailing to Gaza. So climate activist Greta Thunberg and the Game of Thrones actor Liam Cunningham joined the aid ship sailing into Gaza. Nonprofit ship that sails for Gaza after drone attack setback. And 3 years into his war on Ukraine, folks are asking, what does Putin really want? So some folks, including those at Bloomberg, are asking, now is this the moment to pressure Putin and not appease him? And then the Jerusalem Post says Putin, unlike Trump, actually wants a war. And that was from an opinion piece that they had, and all along those lines. So we'll see if folks agree or disagree with some of these things that are being reported. And I'm sure there are other stories that we'll get to as well. Some of the U.S. then I'll bring my folks and all along those lines. Like I did say, Colorado, which I know Rick is involved in or has been in the past, was in the news with that terrorist attack. As far as the stocks, and I know that Sasha is big on that with us as well as Peter Bennett, but it looks like stocks have making the biggest pre-market move, Cleveland Cliffs, the core, Moderna, Tesla, and more. So global stocks slide as tariff tensions reignite. So shares and dollars tumble as tariff tensions flare. So it looks like those tariffs are still impacting us as well. In the Capitol agenda, Thune stares down Medicaid moderates. So a surprising coalition of GOP senators holds all the mega bill leverage. So Hawley stakes ground as chief GOP defender of Medicaid. So even the Durango Herald said the GOP is not the party of the working class. So we'll see if people agree or disagree. And then China calls Trump's trade deal accusations groundless. So China has countered Trump's accusations of a Geneva trade deal violation and says U.S. is undermining consensus. So tariff truce teeters as Trump and China are trading fresh threats. And the GOP mega bill is moving to the Senate, where big changes could be in store. So can Trump fix the national debt? Republican senators, many investors, and even Elon Musk now have doubts. And Tulsa's new black mayor is proposing a $100 million trust to repair the impact of the 1921 race massacre. So Tulsa mayor is proposing a $100 million reparations plan for descendants of the 1921 Tulsa race massacre. So that is something he's talking out there, and we'll see if folks agree with it or disagree with it and how it could even be implemented. And big companies are running for law firms that caved to Trump. So the law firms that appeased Trump and angered their clients was being reported in the Wall Street Journal. And Trump's deals with law firms are like deals made with guns to the head, is what one lawyer said. So definitely we'll see how that plays out as well. And Elon Musk on Doge, and why he doesn't apparently want to take responsibility for everything the administration is doing. As Musk exits Doge, a look back at previous efforts to cut waste, fraud, and abuse and how they fared is being reported in Fox News. Who knows, they might even be talking to our own David Walker, because I know he's done some stuff in that space as well. And apparently Elon Musk is now saying that Doge became the whipping boy for all of the government problems. And 11 people were stabbed at a Salem Union Gospel Missions men's shelter. A suspect is in custody. So this is in Oregon. It's like a horror movie. 11 stabbed at an unhoused shelter in Oregon, and all in that space. So that's just some of the news. Let me bring in my folks, see what they've got on their mind and what they've got going on in their world, and see what they want to talk about as well. So like I said, a lot's going on, and I know I've got Rick Rosner, and like I said, I knew he was from Colorado, so he might have some thoughts about that Colorado attack. And then I've also...
The attacks happened about 100 feet from where my dad's store used to be. So wow. I know that area very well. You know, I've been there.
What kind of store did your dad have?
My dad had, it was a ladies' ready-to-wear store for 50 years at the corner of 14th and Pearl Street. And this attack happened between the 1300 block and the 1400 block in front of the courthouse.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah.
Rick, was that in the Hill District, the Hill?
No, the Hill's about a mile away. This is downtown where they have the pedestrian mall.
Oh, the pedestrian mall. Okay.
The Hill is for college students.
Right. Yeah. I was wondering where the attack took place. So far, apparently there's injuries, but no deaths. But
Yeah, but
apparently there's
he attacked a bunch of old people. The victims
right.
range from 52 to 88 years old.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. It was kind of a weird thing. It made the news late last night. And I was going, well, I used to live on Arapahoe Boulevard somewhere, but that was years
Okay.
ago. And went to the garden.
What's happening in Florida in the news? I didn't see any.
Well, in
news.
Florida, the only thing here that's strange, for at least for me, is the weather. Mark, that when I flew into Tampa, I'm broadcasting from the Marriott and Tampa International. If you ever go to Tampa, they actually have a Marriott right on in the middle of the airport, and so I'm here this week, and I'm go somewhere else. I'll be back here next week. But they had a ground stop because the storms were so bad. They wouldn't let the flight take off for 2 hours in Raleigh. And they have here, if you ever go to Florida, they have these really huge downpours, wind shears, and the planes can't really land because it's like a mini hurricane with down shears, and it's just too dangerous. So they stopped all the planes coming in and out of Tampa International for several hours. But then the storm goes by and you can go ahead and land. And now the weather is kind of what I would call okay. But compared to Barcelona, where it never rains and it's sunny and it's Costa del Sol and we don't listen to all the crazy stuff in America, it is what it is here. You know, they were saying there was something on the internet. They were looking at the most racist countries in the world, and they put in South Africa like number 5, and then they had India, and then they had Russia, and the number 1 racist country was the United States of America.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
It might be true. The U.S. is a very ethnic and racial divided country. So yet it's also where it's the melting pot at the same time that sometimes the pot explodes.
It's a melting pot, but sometimes people do interesting things. I was actually part of a group with a small group, but it was a group that was doing bird watching. That was actually on Saturday. I didn't get to do the full bird watching, even though I did learn about an app called Merlin that will let you hear the birds and identify the birds. And there's another one I think called eBird or something like that. But Anthony Wilson, that used to be one of our anchors here for a number of years. I think his station with both ABC and CBS at different times during his tenure and everything along those lines, and he's the one that told me about it. But it was Black Birders Week, so sometimes we get divided in even our hobbies, and the hobbies might have ethnic titles because it was Black Birders Week last week. So these were African American folks that were out there bird watching, and they may do another bird watching event in June of this month and everything. But yeah, this was the last weekend, so it would have been the latter part of May. But like I said, there was a number of birds that were out there.
You talked about the amazing thing that Ukraine pulled off.
You
had drones in trucks that had the trucks drive to air bases or close by, and the drones flew out of the trucks and blew up 1/3 of Russia's bombers.
I know. I thought it was hilarious. According to the news I'm getting, it's so hard to get the accurate news what goes on in Ukraine, Russia. Except you can go to the Pod TV show Ukraine, Russia, and China, broadcasting now from Poland, Ukraine, and the U.S. But the news I got was they blew up $2 billion worth of aircraft.
I heard $7 billion.
It could be that high. And what happened? It PO'd the Russians, so they stopped the peace talks. And what I thought was pretty hilarious, they pulled a Russian stunt right before the peace talks. They go in and they blow up a bunch of stuff. And so the peace talks over, and Russia talks a lot of smack. Okay, they talk a lot of smack. Well, we're going to nuke Europe or something. Look, here's the reality. If Russia does anything, there will be no Moscow, there will be no Leningrad, there will be no Stalingrad, there will be no Russia. That I can guarantee you. There'll be nobody left because our bombs will hit and destroy everything. Okay, they may kill 20 million or 50 million people, but one thing I guarantee you, there will be no Russia. It'll be over. So they talk a lot of smack because they got a lot of nuclear weapons, but to me, they're the biggest smack talkers. The reality is that they would get pummeled and leveled. There would be no Russia. It would just be complete wasteland at the end of the day, and that's what would happen. So I don't know what they're going to do with this whole Ukraine conflict and stuff. I guess we're yet to see we do see Jatovy has joined us. Let me see if there's anything I can get him riled up for.
Yeah, Jatovey's around. She's up.
I'm trying to get
Well,
Jatovy
well, before you get him riled up and everything, I was actually going to toss something to him and Rick that is in their lane, because if you go on cruises, there is a popular Alaska cruise because they want to see the Northern Lights, but apparently a geomagnetic storm is going to make the Northern Lights visible in Chicago, or at least on Sunday night and everything, and it was also going to make it visible in 23 other U.S. states yesterday, and it might even make them visible as well in other parts of the day as well. So I just wondered, did anybody see the Northern Lights yesterday, or were they trying to see the Northern Lights? Because
I think you got to go far north to go see the Northern Lights, Mark. I don't think you can see it.
No, that's what I said.
Like
they said you can see it. Apparently yesterday you can see it in half of the U.S. They said 23 U.S. states.
Well, I tell you, Florida, you're not going to see the Northern Lights. I mean, you're going to see beaches, and that's about it. Maybe beaches reflecting, the sun. That's about it.
Yeah. So since you want to make Jatovy mad, there is a campaign, and this is what I was going to ask Rick about. Kamala Harris is weighing a run for governor. Some Democrats are moving on. They're moving on from her run as president and everything like that. So party activists in California are sold on a Harris run for governor, but and apparently she hasn't shown much interest in being the California governor. But the If Harris Doesn't Run campaign is in full swing. So I guess they're trying to figure out, if she doesn't run, and I don't think Gavin can run because I think he's out of his times that he can run, who will be running the state of California?
So just because Nixon narrowly lost to Kennedy in 1960 to be president of the U.S., but that's not any guarantee that you can win California, because then in 62, Nixon ran to be governor of California and lost again. So,
Reagan was a Republican. He won. Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that Harris, it's quite possible that Harris could run to be governor of California and not win.
Yeah, well, it depends what celebrity that they put up. And speaking of celebrities, I think Kim's in your city meeting with the Little House on the Prairie reunion somewhere in California.
All right.
So she's doing her Little House, and then she's going back for some other meeting with broadcasters. Oh, I know it'll get Jatovy riled up. I'm always looking for stuff, Jatovy. I don't want you to be bored. This is Elon Musk, your big friend, Elon. Okay, we're going to be discussing it, David Walker, Doge, because according to the White House reports I read, they say they saved $160 billion so far. Like it's a big deal. Number one, that's a drop in the bucket compared to the deficit. Number two, the new big beautiful bill increases the deficit. It doesn't help anybody. So we're getting a full report from David Walker.
Elon says he's the whipping boy of Trump now. So he says that he's been the whipping boy of the White House administration. So apparently the bromance is over, because now he's saying that he's the whipping boy, or Doge is the whipping boy.
Okay, we're gonna talk about Elon. This guy really needs to grow up. First of all, if what he says is true, which we don't know, he says he only has $1 million in cash in the bank. A guy worth $400 billion should have more access than $1 million in the bank. So if it's true, he really is mismanaging his cash position. The other thing is he's out of Doge. Apparently on the high side, he saves $160 billion. Really, that's it? When he said 2 trillion, then 1 trillion, now 160 billion. Yeah, boy, that's going to put a big dent in our $37 trillion debt. So what did he do during that time except get a lot of publicity?
One thing, there were reports that he was tripping balls on ketamine and other drugs while he was.
Well, what he actually did was he cut the areas that were regulating his companies. That's the only thing he really did.
Yeah. No, there's no question. He's working to align so he can get money funneled over to SpaceX and money funneled over to Tesla. He's there to make sure that he creates the relationships to bring money in the door. I have no doubt he's going to try to do that, Jatovy. But in terms of his success at Doge, I don't think.
Well, they claim
Dave Walker's going to discuss it. We'll see what
there was no success at Doge, because evidently the cuts that he was trying to make, or that he made, is going to cost us more making those cuts based on, for example, cutting the veterans benefits, it's going to cost us more in healthcare just to cover the veterans themselves. So we're going to end up spending more money based on his cuts because there were no real cuts. They were just, it was a guise to funnel money into himself. Funny thing is, this is really where the real funny part comes into play. Evidently now Trump is questioning what Doge did. So now you
really?
have, yeah, so there are reports saying
so the big friend thing is going away. Eh?
Yep, the big friend thing is going away. And
BFFs, I guess what
what
the young guys call them.
well, and then so you have
I have a
that
different
piece happening. But
BFF, and it's not a good definition, so I can't even say it here. But go on.
my big thing is the black eye. He said the black eye came from his kid. There are also reports that the black eye came from a scuffle that he had with some of the Trump administration people.
Oh,
So-
no, come on. It could be his 4 or 5 wives. Or his
I mean, it could be that too, but we don't know where that black eye came from.
yeah.
And now he doesn't want to say anything about Trump because in an interview he was just in recently.
Maybe Trump hit him. Who knows?
That's why Mitch McConnell didn't want to say anything.
Get out of here, Elon.
Maybe Trump's got a mean left hook and everything, but just really quickly, they are saying that Doge is resisting a lawsuit because your favorite people, the Supreme Court, have got an emergency docket, and one of them is a lawsuit calling for it to publicly disclose information about its operation. So they want to find out exactly what they've done and everything, and they are resisting this. So we'll see if it actually happens in the emergency docket, because there are several things that are on the emergency docket, including a judge blocking Doge's access to the Social Security system because of privacy concerns. So definitely there's
Mark,
a lot going on that emergency docket.
You're saying about the big beautiful bill, which is now in front of the Senate, which creates an additional deficit, adding to the debt 4.5 trillion. To me, that's not great financial management. I don't know if David Walker's can agree with me on that. They increased the amount of defense spending. I mean, we're highest in the world right now. Now it's going to even be higher, and I still don't know what we're getting for it. So they're spending more money on all sorts of things. But the real problem is the massive tax cuts. I mean, you cannot be serious. You can't decrease your revenue and expect to balance your bloody budget. I mean, you have to have the revenues remain the same. At expenses. Does this guy know how to manage any basic company?
Remember,
increase revenue, decrease expenses equals more profit or less losses. It's not rocket science. It's not doing calculus. It's not doing algebra equations. It's really very simple math, and these people can't do it. But of course, Donald Trump.
Nick, this is why I asked the two questions that
he should be able to figure this out by now.
But see, Nick,
simple. What?
This is why I asked those two questions that I always ask. Why do people believe that Elon Musk is a genius? The dude does not know space. He didn't do anything with SpaceX. He bought it. He didn't do any. The only idea that he had with Tesla was the Cybertruck, and the Cybertruck is one of the top recalled trucks in the whole country. Then if you look at he bought Twitter because he evidently knew more than everybody else.
He overpaid.
Well, Twitter's still in last place in terms of the social medias. So he's not a genius on all these things. Then why do people think Donald Trump is such a businessman? He bankrupted a casino multiple times. Do you know how hard it is to bankrupt a casino?
You don't have to tell me on that. The thing is, there's a guy named Dave Ramsey who's on radio all the time who purports to know everything about finances, and there's absolutely no way you can't. So the thing is, it doesn't matter how smart you are; it's who you surround yourself with. And apparently, he's not surrounding himself with people that are better than him. And I've looked through his people's curriculum vitae, and they just aren't very good. Now, ours is great. We're the Pod TV network. We're not Elon Musk and Donald Trump. So, great. Here comes the great man from Australia. the purveyor of all knowledge down under, which, by the way,
Well,
Australia.
speaking of,
apparently
hold on, hold on a second. Speaking of purveyor of
I'm gonna
all
move
knowledge, we're going to
Australia.
get to an issue that might get everybody arguing and everything like that. But apparently, Trump wants to change citizenship rules in place for more than 125 years. So this is one of those cases that's going on. So several judges quickly blocked an executive order Trump signed his first day in office that would deny citizenship to children who were born to people who are in the country illegally or temporarily. And this is one of those cases that's going to go before the emergency docket. So the administration appealed 3 court orders that prohibited the changes from taking effect anywhere in the country. And earlier in May, the justices took the rare step of hearing arguments in an emergency appeal. So what's our thoughts around this notion of basically it's the dreamers, because it's children who are born to people who are in the country.
Oh, well, I signed an executive order the other day prohibiting what he just did. I put it on LinkedIn. And somebody asked, I'm serious, Toby. Somebody asked, how could he do that? Well, my question is, how does Trump do it? You know, he's just signing executive orders. So what? You know, it doesn't mean it's legal. See, that was my point. It was kind of a deep, you got to think about this for a while. So I just signed this executive order prohibiting him from doing that, Mark. You see what I mean? It's stupid. Because the thing is, what he's going to find out, a lot of his executive orders don't necessarily mean they're illegal, which apparently the big case might be going to the Supreme Court. It's this deal whether he can do tariffs unilaterally. Hello. The U.S. Court of International Trade 3-0, including a Trump judge, said, no, you can't. And that's the reason I picked it up. I got the lead counsel, Jeffrey Schwab. I don't think I can get him now because, man, his profile just went way up when he won that case. I got him on the Lawyers Den, Mark.
But
But
just really quickly, apparently he's violating his own orders, because they even said that the White House violated his early order, and this has to do with South Sudan. So that's one of the other cases, because they sent a deportation flight bound for the African nation carrying people from other countries who have been convicted of crimes in the U.S., but they're saying that he violated one of his early orders. So if he had an order that said one thing and he violated the order with this whole notion of sending people to a country that isn't the country that they are from. In this case, it was about deportation to South Sudan, which we're struggling with poverty and a number of other things. So,
well, Mark, you also got to add in the unconstitutionality piece of it, because of the fact that you're sending people into a war zone, which you're not able to do as well.
Oh, sure you can. You're Donald Trump. You can do anything. You just don't. You know, there was this famous case. I'm going to look it up. Andrew Jackson. I'm going to find out what the Supreme Court case, and the Trail of Tears took all the American natives and ran them off out of Georgia into Oklahoma. The Supreme Court of the United States, in a very famous case, which I'll look up the name, ruled that's illegal. You can't do that. And you know what Andrew Jackson said? You made your decision, now enforce it.
Well, speaking of making decisions and now enforcing, I'm gonna really steer up things because you're not doing a good job of it. And I think I've got Shaquille.
I haven't got stirred up yet.
And then since I got Shaquille and Toby here, the Tulsa mayor,
they'll
one of
stir
the
each
Black
other
Wall
up.
Street, has proposed a $100 million trust to repair the impact of the 1921 Tulsa race massacre. So what is our thoughts around this? Because apparently he is planning to put together a $100 million reparation plan for anybody that can prove that they were descendants of the 1921 Tulsa race massacre, which was a horrible scar in that city's memory and everything like that. So is this going to work? Is he going to be able to get up the money? How are they going to get the money distributed? How are they going to prove that the people were descendants? That I've got. So who
is planning this?
Tulsa.
Tulsa.
Oh.
You know what they did?
Yeah,
they burned all the black businesses down. Okay.
No. I know the whole Tulsa massacre, the whole Black Wall Street situation. That also happened in multiple places. I mean, even here in North Carolina, there was Wilmington where that happened as well. So if Tulsa's planning it, the interesting thing about that is that didn't they just deny the one of the descendants their legal right? There was a case that she had, if I remember, that there was one of the descendants that was suing for something, and I cannot remember. It's Rick, if you're by the computer, because I'm out at a car lot right now getting repairs done. If you're by the computer, can you look up? There was a Tulsa case where one descendant from the Tulsa massacre just got denied, or the I think it happened last year or the year before last, but I cannot remember. So that's why when you said who was doing it, Mark, that was the piece that
Here we
confused
go.
me.
The Oklahoma Supreme Court
Yeah.
dismissed the lawsuit brought by the last two known survivors, Viola Fletcher and
Right.
Leslie Benningfield Randall, seeking compensation.
So that's
Court
why.
ruled that- all right, let me just finish. The court ruled that the plaintiffs, the grievances, while legit, did not fall under the scope of Ohio's public nuisance statute. So the judge agreed that they suffered damages, but that the law didn't offer remedy for those damages.
So that's what confuses me about the whole thing. What's going to happen with, what you're saying, Mark? Is this going to be a real thing, or is this not going to be a real thing?
I mean, they can always pass legislation, but Oklahoma is a pretty redneck state. I don't see how they'll get it through the state legislature.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. The state legislature, how they gonna get that? Hey, we'll get on another one, and I think Shaquille was complaining about the background noise, probably from you, Nick, but everything. But just really quickly, because you're a lawyer, and we've got other people that are lawyers on this network, but apparently big companies are running from law firms that caved to Trump. So apparently there are some law firms that basically caved to Trump, and now they're saying that some major corporations are running away from those people because they're saying that the law firms appease Trump and therefore angered their clients. So I was wondering your thoughts on like that, because it says Trump, even NPR is saying Trump's deal with law firms are like deals made with a gun to the head, is what's up with that.
Well, yeah, it shows the weakness of the law firm. I mean, why hire a law firm who's going to cave? Come on, Mark. Right. The thing is, if you're hiring a law firm, you're hiring a gladiator. Okay, seriously. I mean, I used to do litigation, and the whole idea, it's a big war, and you're the gladiator. You get bruised, beaten, cut, etc. Now, imagine your gladiator decides, oh, I'm leaving. It's too hard for me. Then why would you hire him? Okay, in other words, I would fire him. Because the thing is, you hire people to fight for you till they die. Literally, that's the name of the game in legal practice. And so, if you have a law firm that the minute the heat's on, they cave, goodbye. Go get another one. Get a law firm that's not going to cave. So I don't blame them at all, because I would fire them, because I would go no. I want a law firm who is willing to fight my case to the death, to go through every court, destroy everything. I mean, that's kind of like the name of the game. So I don't blame them for firing the ones that capitulated early, because that's not a law firm. That's just whoever the heck they are. Oh, I did find the case. It's Worcester versus Georgia. That's where Justice Marshall declared everything Andrew Jackson to do basically illegal. And Andrew Jackson goes, oh, great, you made your decision, now enforce it. And this is going to be a problem you're going to see in the next 3 years. I am predicting. Remember, I predicted that you're going to see tariffs and you're going to see these executive orders. Now you see a combination of both, because those are our favorite toys. Here's the next prediction. You're going to see to what extent can the judicial branch enforce their decisions. You're going to see this. It's coming up because Trump, who never reads history but creates history, the Worcester versus Georgia case, I will never forget, because that's kind of how I practice. Okay, judge, you made your decision, now enforce it. And you can appeal it to another court. A lot of people don't know that. In other words, if Rick's my client, I just go back to him, hey, Rick, you lost. I guess we got to settle, or we're going to have to get out. Not telling him, Rick, we can keep this case going on appeal, and we can keep going this way, we can keep going that way, we can keep going forever. So the thing is, what we're going to see is whether or not how much strength the judiciary branch has versus the executive branch, where sooner or later, the Supreme Court's going to make a decision. And sooner or later, Mark, Donald Trump's going to ignore it. He's going to ignore it. He's going to pull an Andrew Jackson. Oh, great.
Well,
great.
Immigration
I'm just going to
speaking of ignoring stuff and all along those lines.
Nick,
great.
actually,
But speaking of ignoring
actually
stuff,
on that question,
hey, it's great theater. It's great for pod
well,
TV. We'll always have
Nick,
to talk about. He'll always make Jatovi angry, so that I always have Jatovi coming back.
Hey, Nick, actually on that same thing though, didn't he start really pushing the envelope? Because the Supreme Court, or was not the Supreme Court, but the lower court told him to, turn the plane around, get the people back, get the gentleman back from Maryland. Yeah. And then it went to the Supreme Court and they kind of avoided the question.
Sure.
and kept it with the lower court. Didn't this all what you're talking about start when he found out he could do that?
It's our, but you're just saying the precursor, Jacoby. I'm telling you, especially with this tariff, which was 3-0 by
hold on a second.
trade. This could go all the Supreme Court.
But speaking of tariffs and going to the Supreme Court, speaking of the tariffs and going to the Supreme Court, just really quickly and everything. Trump administration just recently claimed, I think it was yesterday, that the Chinese students, and like I said, I think I got a couple of those in here in my neighborhood, are exploiting the U.S. university. So what is their take on this? Are they actually exploiting?
Well, that's a good question. Okay, I have different feelings on this. First of all, they just did a survey, and Harvard is the best research facility in the United States in medical. And then the next 9 are Chinese universities. In other words, we don't have a good number 2, Mark. Okay, but so here's the arguments. Number 1, we're funding $2 billion of hard-earned taxpayers' money into Harvard University, which is a private institution. Okay, and hence the American taxpayers have a say. Well, one thing American taxpayers would have a say, and I like Shaquille, but no, you don't get to go to Harvard University because you're Australian, mate, and you didn't pay U.S. taxes. Okay, but here's how Harvard treats it. Oh, Shaquille, you're from Australia. Oh, what a wonderful country. We need world diversity. You get in, and Nick's kids and grandkids don't get in because we want an Australian in. Here's what we say to that. Now, if they were completely private, which they're not, then I don't have a vote. I have no say-so whatsoever. If they want to bring in Shaquille, they can bring in Shaquille. I can't stop it. But that is not what's happening.
But hold on, Nick.
Is American taxpayers are subsidizing foreign students. It's not good.
No,
American taxpayer.
Nick.
Your kids don't get to go, and Shaquille.
Nick.
Go. No.
Nick. Aren't
you're going to?
Isn't the money? Isn't what I'm asking you? Isn't the vast majority of the money given to Harvard for research?
It doesn't matter. Okay, when the money.
So if the vast majority,
if they are now not really a private institution.
But hold on. If you're saying that if we agree that the vast majority of the money is given for research, and Harvard is the number 1 research facility or the college in the U.S., actually globally as well, but China has the next ones beneath that.
9.
Yeah, the next 9 beneath.
That's how tough the Chinese are.
But
Australia doesn't even have a top 10 anything.
But do we want that? Do we want a top research college?
We don't necessarily need it. No.
So we want to, if we want to be,
we can
if
Chinese,
now
once the Chinese develop things, we'll steal from them. Just like
now, Nick.
So it's not necessary.
Now, counsel. If we want to be the quote unquote global leader, and in our time in the U.S. history, or actually even global history, the time when we were that global leader was when we were leading in education and everything else, correct?
Well, we're not even close.
No, but I'm asking now.
Change that at all, Jatovi. Our K through 12 system doesn't crack the top 20.
Oh, I agree that I agree with you on the K through 12 system. We need to.
You're just going up.
No,
buddy.
What I'm stating. What I'm stating to you is that I agree with the K through 12 system. That education piece, it needs to change as well. But I do think that us being able to have and produce things and create things in the U.S. and that entity itself is actually producing and leading in like healthcare research, dealing with cancers and so on and so forth. So if we want to lead in these areas again and be that global leader, wouldn't it be smart to fund this facility?
Okay, Jatovi, why don't you send me a check so I can send my kids to school? Would you do that?
That's already happening.
No, it isn't.
Aren't your taxes? It
doesn't matter the result. Okay.
So
your tax money should not go to a private school, period, el endo, when they're
again. Can you tell me how much we're talking going to Harvard to fund these students?
It's about 2.2 billion.
So it's not the initial number. So it's not the initial number that you stated, correct?
I said 2.2 billion. I haven't changed my number.
Oh, but we said that that number is vastly for research. That the amount is vastly for
Well,
research.
the thing is, a lot of the research grants, as you know, go to university professors to subsidize them and also students. So it does end up in the students' pocketbooks.
Wait a
Okay.
second. We just agreed.
But I'm saying, if you're a U.S. taxpayer, okay,
Okay,
you need to put America first. America
they do.
great again. And I know you totally
They do.
against it because your idea
No, incorrect. They do.
first.
They already put America first because who the majority of students that go to Harvard are who?
and
American students.
Harvard. Hey, Jacoby, I actually went to Harvard. Okay, when I was there, the thing that
Oh, so you're an American. So you're a foreigner now. Is that you
No, I
got
wasn't
subsidized? Or,
I'm a foreigner now, but sort
so
of.
you got. So you're a foreigner sort of now, but you got subsidized by us to go to Harvard.
40 years ago. No, I paid my own way to go to Harvard.
Okay, so the people that come from overseas pay for their way too, you know.
I'll tell you the thing that repulsed me. Most of the people there, a lot of them, and they are even today, were from foreign countries. They were not Americans. Okay.
Okay, so what?
The thing is, let's just get real. It's not an American institution, and that is fine.
The majority of students that go to
do not
Harvard.
get taxpayer funding.
Hold on, Nick. Are the majority of students that go to Harvard from the U.S.?
Bye.
Are the majority of the students that go to Harvard from the U.S.?
Objection asked and answered.
Okay, so the answer is yes.
I have some numbers here. So, here's numbers. So 10% of Harvard's operating budget came from federal grants, 686 million. So that means that Harvard spends about $7 billion a year. They get 10% of that, nearly 700 million. Of that, 488 million comes from the National Institute of Health. So I wanted to find out how much of Harvard's research is in science, because one criticism is that you say, well, they're doing a bunch of sociology or psychology, some like soft bullshit that doesn't advance anything, but that's not true. At least 70% of their research is in the hard sciences.
Good. Then those professors can move to other universities that accept American students as opposed to pandering to international students.
Is it all right? So you don't like that Harvard has, hold on. So you don't like that Harvard has 25% foreign students, but what about the 75% of students at Harvard who are good red-blooded Americans? Why are you fucking those over?
So yeah, those 75%.
You make it 100%. If the United States
but Nick,
fund it, it gets
Nick, you went to and have championed your school, University of Miami, that has 13 to 15% foreign students. They're not 100% as well. So now you're saying that 85% is bad, even though those are all 85% American students. 75% is bad. That's at Harvard.
No,
those are all American students.
We're just discussing Harvard University right now, Jacoby.
Oh, so we can't talk about University of Miami. Gotcha.
No, University of Miami, since I went there and I matriculated from there, is off the table. Okay. Okay, and so the thing is, American taxpayer money should not be going to fund foreign student education. Period. The endo. Now, and they only lose.
University of Miami. Gotcha.
Your stupid liberal garbage stuff. Oh, but Rick and Jacoby, it's only 10%.
No, hold on a second. I'm trying to understand what you're trying to say.
It's only 10%.
I'm trying to understand the argument. Hold on a second. I'm trying to understand the argument. So if Shaquille, and I know he's made enough money, he doesn't have to go to college, but if Shaquille wanted to get an advanced degree of some sort and wanted to come to, let's say Duke, or wanted to come to Yale and everything, you would not accept him because he is from Australia by way of Fiji, by way of a number of other countries as well. So am I understanding you that you would not accept any foreign students because you want 100% acceptance of U.S. students?
If you are receiving government funds, he would be denied.
So Shaq, you can't go to University of Miami.
If that university is receiving government funds, admission denied.
Every
It's real simple.
Doesn't er-
I don't know why you guys have a problem with it. Now,
so University of Miami, Harvard, UCLA, MIT.
you strip
Um,
them all the government funds, send it
okay.
to, unfortunately, as much as I hate to say it, you send it to
Liberty University.
Yeah. They don't get anything.
Okay.
Not one government dime. Remember,
That means
first
a lot of
you
colleges are closing.
getting Toby, your government is broke. Okay, you haven't got.
What are you
that
talking
yet.
about?
Your
What are you
government
talking about?
is $37 trillion in the hole, dude. You haven't got that yet.
What-
I know.
What are
I
you
know.
talking about, Nick?
You Americans are having a hard time with this one. Your
Hold
government
on.
is broke.
What are you talking about? We got a lot of money. We're giving tax breaks to
Broke.
everybody. We're not paying for any of the
It doesn't
defense
matter what
spending.
you think. Your government's broke. Your government's
We're
37 trillion in the hole, going to 38. You spent $1 trillion.
38. We're going to
Yeah.
41 because he's adding 4.5 to it.
You're the most mismanaged government since the Roman Empire. You know, and so the thing is, you got to start with that premise and then work from there. So your liberal garbage is being taken out by the big trash containers. You know, so forget that. And so the thing is, you have
So
to
here's the
never
question, Nick.
do this.
What investments should we make, and what things do you believe have the biggest return on investment? Because obviously
You're
you
not
believe
making
that.
investments. The government does not make investments. It spends money. The liberal garbage
Okay.
they call spending expenses and trash throwaways investments. It's not investment. I've listened to Joe Biden for years. We're going to make there's no investment. Okay, what you're doing is you're tossing money and you're burning money. You're tossing money
Okay.
aside. It's not an investment.
Okay, so- Here's a question: Is investing in
Good
investing
MBAs
in
in this country.
does investing in any research help? I mean, when we invest in, say, for example, investing in the nanobot technology right now that's trying to work towards
Waste of money.
that waste of money. Okay.
Waste of money, not government money.
we
If
got
you
a
put
question.
your hard-earned dollars into it. I
All
don't
right.
give a-
As always, I have numbers here. So I
You gotta
believe.
have a statistician.
All right.
What is it?
So I just looked it up. So R&D spending, that's research and development. This is federal money given to wherever as a percentage of GDP to do science. In 1964, federal R&D accounted for 1.86% of GDP. By 2022, it had dropped by 2/3 to 0.63% of GDP. So if you're worried about saving money, you're not going to save much by knocking out federal R&D spending because it's less than 1/150th of all the money that the government spends.
Yeah, that's the typical liberal argument. It's just little tiny money that we're spending, and then we only spent 1% here and 1% here and 1% here 100 times.
Yeah, but that
And then we just
money
spent
helps
100%.
result. It's part of what's called the reason.
In other words,
triad.
I just bought a little bit here on my credit card, a little bit there on my credit card, a little bit there on my credit
Here,
card, and I don't know why it added up to
Hold
a
on.
large.
but
You know,
but Nick,
wait a second. Hold
hold on, real Nick.
Hold on.
Okay, it's
Hold
only-
the
what would you
fuck
say? It was only
on. So
10%.
if you want to
Only
if you
10%
want to
of Harvard's
argue
budget.
that we
They'll
don't
never
need to
miss it.
fund, hold on. If
Yeah,
you
this
want to
is
argue that we don't need to fund PBS, because what's the
I'd
result?
give them
What
not-
is, no, hold on. So what is the result of PBS? So some kids.
What was all of PBS?
Well,
made a
hold on,
millionaire
actually-
from
over me.
Washington,
But
D.C.
the federal R&D has a definite effect on our technological superiority.
Listen, you don't need PBS.
No, hold on.
Joke.
Even better.
My
Big
argument.
bird.
Hold
Rick.
on. Like,
You know,
that's
what a
that's
waste of
hold on.
money.
Let me make my point, and then you can make your
Another
points
waste.
after.
Hold
If you're going to argue, you can make a better argument against PBS than you can against federal R&D because federal R&D has a demonstrable effect on our technological superiority.
Oh, if that's
Oh, hold
true,
on.
then private industry would take
Here,
over.
hold on.
wouldn't it, Rick?
Hold on. Let me
there waiting
Rick.
to invest, but he can't invest because
Rick.
you have the government sticking their nose in front of him, and they're not
Rick.
investing, they're throwing it away.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, Rick, let me ask you a question real quick, Rick.
You know,
Now, with federal R&D, what was one of the with federal R&D, NASA was up under that. So in NASA, one of the biggest things that they've created, which is or actually,
Let's go to the moon.
Rick, can you help me out?
I mean,
Didn't NASA create Kevlar?
Should go to the moon because we can.
So no, hold on, Rick, Nick, listen. So Rick, so NASA created Kevlar, correct?
Right.
boy, that Lord.
And so with hold on. Can you can anybody name me anything where Kevlar is used?
Yeah, bulletproof vests and other.
Where else?
I don't know.
and,
For
and
bulletproof vests to,
And your point is how wonderful this is.
well, do you realize had we not created,
Private
hold on,
industry.
you wanted me to answer. Private industry did not create Kevlar and was not in the
No,
process
that's-
of creating Kevlar.
They're
So, No, what it was no, you're answering for me and not listening. So what the government did do was put money into research. And honestly, even the going to the moon thing, that was actually the government itself, because it was a race to space because Russia put in Sputnik. And so that's how the race, that's how jet propulsion, that's how a ton of other technologies came from that, and that are used in our military. Because if you look at, it did make America rich because of the amount of technology, the technology that was placed into these things, the technology that was utilized from NASA is used by our military, which we spent a ton of money on, and that helped make a lot of money. That's only one minor example, but Rick is spot on with the amount of money that is spent on research and development, and that money actually those investments pay us back, from cancer research to all the medications that we take, all the stuff that's going on.
Complete waste.
Yeah.
Complete
No,
waste. Well,
not at all.
Most of the progress has been made because of private industry, which makes true investments rather than government,
Actually,
which throws money away. And
it's always been due to a public-private partnership.
Jatovi, your government is 37 trillion in debt, and
And
your credit card.
and Trump wants to make it about 41, 42. But either way, but yes, it's a public-private partnership deal that's always ended up making the best things.
Jatovi, your government is $37 trillion in debt. Your credit card's due. We need you to make a payment. And more on investment,
Any business tells you got to spend money to make money.
Yeah, Rick.
Rick,
The entire internet comes from Defense Department research spending.
Exactly.
The tech sector contributes 9% of U.S.
The
GDP.
entire internet. What a sweeping statement that is. Okay.
It was.
Technological basis. So
if
not
that is true, if that
.com
is true,
and Pornhub.
then the U.S.
But
government
the
needs to
technological underpinning of the internet came from defense research spending through DARPA,
Yep.
which is
wonderful.
the arm
No
of
one else made
military
a
spending
contribution
that
to the internet except the U.S. Defense Department.
Oh,
And
check
if
this
that's
out.
true, which it isn't. If that's
Check
true,
this out.
it isn't an investment, which it isn't. Show me where my dividend check is,
Hold
Rick
on.
Jatovi, from this great investment.
You went to Harvard. Harvard actually played a role. So here's
Well,
another
Harvard-
one for you. Hey, Rick, check this out.
So your investment idea is
Check-
a complete.
Check this out, Rick. How you pointed out about the internet itself
You actually
in terms of
sell
the underpinning of the internet, which is true about it came out of defense. You know what else came out of defense? Hold on. You know what? No, wait, Nick. Hold on, Nick. Do you know what else came out of defense? The video game industry.
Waiting
The
for
video game industry actually came out of the Hold on, Nick. The video game industry actually came out of defense. That's where
And yeah,
that's where Pong started.
The video game industry's done the
The
world.
video game
Not.
The video game industry itself grows 40% roughly every year. The video game industry is one of the matter of fact, esports itself, when it crossed over $1 billion, that made it globally the 10th, well, on the top 10 list of sports. So there's a lot of stuff that these investments have actually created businesses and everything else.
Obviously you financially mismanage it, you liberals, because if that was true, which it isn't, I would be receiving a dividend check, which I'm not, instead of a debt of 37 trillion, which I am. So obviously,
also the irony,
FUBAR, Jatobi.
Also the irony of this is that you went to two publicly funded schools. You went to the University of Miami, and you're complaining about, oh no, they receive public funds. They've also got 13 to 15% of international students.
That's because you're
but you went there. You went to Harvard, who you're just complaining about where this whole argument started. So
I have to leave, you guys.
Yeah,
I gotta go too. Hey, it's been real entertaining to listen to the left. Now, wonderful. All these investments that have cost me 37 trillion, and I get nothing in return, and they're happy about it.
When are you paying it? Are you paying the 37 trillion?
They're thrilled that they could put more money on the credit card. But with that, I'll be going to somebody who's fiscally responsible, the Honorable David M. Walker, the former Comptroller General of the United States. I'll be leaving this to go to that, because then he will actually say,
Shaquille wants to say something. Let's have
Yeah, I was
Shaquille
trying to get
talk.
Shaquille some opportunity to say something.
Well, the show's about to end. I've waited the whole show because you keep asking me not to interrupt people. So I've waited the whole show, and so you might as well just end the show. I'll speak next time.
No, go ahead. You got 2.5 minutes. That's
I
it.
don't need the 2.5 minutes. There's no way I can respond to anything that I wanted to respond to in 2.5 minutes. So that's okay. Thank you.
All right. So I want to say that, like, our wars have been great technological impetuses for technological development. We blew an incredible amount of money on the Manhattan Project, $30 billion in today's dollars to build the atomic bomb. But the financial benefit of that is the nuclear industry, which generates $60 billion in revenue every year, and should be more as we bring more nuclear plants online to power AI. So even a crazy project like an atomic bomb continues to pay huge dividends.
Oh, even more so, even the saliva from a Gila monster can pay dividends, because now we got Ozempic.
Okay. And which may lead to more babies, because if people get less fat and start doing more humping, then it might help solve the baby shortage.
See, this is why I love you, Rick. We always bring the show back to humping, and I love it.
It's
He's very basic about what he's got on his mind and everything. I'm just trying to figure out how come they're trying to smuggle exotic animals into India, but that's where I was going to go with Shaquille. But we'll figure that out later, because apparently this is something that you're concerned about humans smuggling. All right, cool. We'll get ready to get on out of here.